Hey friends, welcome back to Homestead on a Prayer. Today you're joining me in my kitchen and we are going to make the first of many batches of Christmas cookies that we'll be making over the course of this December. Now, of course, if you don't celebrate Christmas, you're welcome to make these cookies for any occasion. But I'm going to be making my first batch of cookies today. These are going to be Chewy Molasses cookies with just a little hint of spice. They've got some cinnamon and ginger. They're really delicious. And for today's recipe, we are going to be making a lot of cookies. I'm making a double batch of these cookies, and honestly, even a single batch of these cookies makes a lot. But my church every Christmas does like an outreach program for a lot of homeless people in our area, and we distribute Christmas stockings to them with lots of things that they need, you know, gloves, hats, socks, lots of stuff like that. And one of the things that we're including is some home-baked Christmas cookies. So I am in charge of baking half of the cookies for those stockings. So we need to make 82 cookies. So that's quite a few, but I think with doubling the batch, I will have more than that, so we'll have enough for us to have some too. So today we are not going to be using my stand mixer. We're going to be using my giant mixing bowl here because I don't think my stand mixer has enough space. Also, my paddle attachment for my stand mixer has mysteriously disappeared. So I have another one ordered, but while I'm waiting for it to come in, we're just gonna be using the big mixing bowl and the hand mixer. Now, as always, when we do a recipe together, I'm going to include, in this case, it won't be a link to the recipe. I will hand write out the ingredients for you in the recipe description so you don't have to worry about writing them down. Now, one thing to note is we are not going to start this recipe with preheating our oven because once we get this dough assembled, it's going to have to chill in the fridge for a couple hours. That's really important with these cookies because they are sticky and gooey, and if you don't let them chill, they're basically going to be impossible to shape into cookies. So we're not going to worry about preheating our oven right now. Right now, we're just going to get our dough mixed up. We're going to get it chilling in the fridge, and I'm going to meet you back here later this evening to actually bake these. So remember that as I make this recipe, I'm doubling it. So if you're going to make a single batch, you're going to use half of what I'm using here. So we are going to use 2 cups of butter. So I get my butter in these little half-pound blocks, which is about a cup each. So we're going to need 2 of these right into the bowl. So next we'll be adding in some granulated sugar. Now, because we're doubling this recipe, we need 4 cups of sugar, quite a lot of sugar. A lot of my measuring cups are dirty right now. So I'm going to use what I have that's clean. So I have 1/3 of a cup, which means I'm going to need 12 of these to equal 4 cups. So you guys are going to have to help me count here. 1, 2, 3. You may notice that I'm not packing this measuring cup full to the top. A lot of times with sugar, I tend to kind of skimp a little bit and measure slightly under. Now, of course, you can't go under by too much because the sugar also adds structure to your dough. It's not only sweetness, but I like to take out a little bit. 11, 12. All right, so we have a bowl full of butter and sugar. So before we add any other ingredients to this mixture, we're just gonna go ahead and cream up the butter and sugar together. I'm just gonna get this sugar put away so we have a little more counter space to work with. Of course, if you're making a recipe like this, really important to let your butter soften to room temperature. I forgot to mention that before, I think. So I had this butter sitting out on my counter all night, which is the only reason why this mixer can actually handle this somewhat. All right, so our butter and sugar mostly got incorporated. I did have to scrape it down with this wooden spoon a couple times just to get it to really work, but it's all mixed up now. So now it's time to add the rest of our liquid ingredients. So the first thing that we're going to start with is a cup of milk. Again, the recipe calls for half a cup. We're doubling it, so it's going to be a cup. Let's pour this in. We have 4 eggs here. I've already beaten these up a little bit, so we're going to go ahead and add these in as well. So next we're going to need 2 cups of molasses. This recipe actually calls for 2 cups of light molasses. The molasses that I normally have on hand is this blackstrap molasses, which is pretty much the opposite. So I did go out and just purchase this regular grandma's molasses from the store. I don't think this is going to be quite 2 cups. So what I'm going to do is use what I have of this, and then I'm just going to top it off with a blackstrap, and I think that will be all right. So we are just going to measure the molasses in the same measuring cup that we measured the milk in. And this is going to be just under 2 cups with this jar, I think. Looks like about 1.5 cups. So let's top this off with our extra dark blackstrap molasses to get 2 cups. All right, 2 cups of molasses. So into our mixture this goes. We're gonna mix it up and then we'll start adding dry ingredients. And I'm definitely going to have to scrape this. One thing about these cookies, molasses is delicious, not alone, but it adds like a delicious flavor to the cookies. Adds a nice richness, it makes them deliciously chewy, but it does make them very sticky and difficult to work with. But I promise it's worth it if you like a nice, rich, delicious cookie with a little bit of, just a little hint of spice in it. It's really good. All right, so let's go ahead and mix this up as best we can. Hopefully we won't make a mess here. So here, you can see how it looks. Not completely smooth, but I think that's good enough. The stand mixer definitely does do a better job of incorporating all this, but back in the dark ages, before I had a stand mixer, sometimes I would make this completely by hand, even beating everything in just with a spoon and a whisk. This is definitely better than that. It's definitely much easier than that. I do recommend using a stand mixer if you have one, but if not, a hand mixer works fine. So we're gonna set this to the side. We're going to mix up all our dry ingredients, and then we're just going to incorporate everything together. So into this bowl here, we are going to need 9 cups of flour. That is a lot of flour. I have 4 cups pre-measured here, and then we're going to go ahead and add 5 more. 4. And the last one. All right, so you can see why I didn't think we'd be able to get this whole recipe in the stand mixer, and I don't think we would have been able to. I'm actually hopeful we'll be able to get it in this bowl, but I guess we're gonna find out. So to our dry ingredients, we have 9 cups of flour here. To this, we are first going to add half a teaspoon of salt. So since we're doubling this, we're going to need a whole teaspoon of cinnamon. So I'm gonna go ahead and add that in. We are going to need 2 teaspoons of ground ginger. Oh, a spoon doesn't fit in there, so we're going to pour it out. And we're also going to need 2 teaspoons of baking soda. Let's go ahead and add that in. All right, so let's go ahead and whisk up our dry ingredients. Also want to be careful not to spill this bowl since it's not all that stable. So we are going to add this flour in parts to this mixture here. Okay, so I'm going to start by adding about 1/3 of the dry ingredients into our wet ingredients here. I'm definitely going to start this on the lowest setting to avoid a cloud. Okay, I take that back. The lowest setting is not quite low enough. So I'm going to start with my whisk actually. It should be pretty easy to incorporate right now since there's only a small amount of dry ingredients in here. I'm going to get this just wet enough that it's not going to explode in my kitchen, and then we'll add the next batch of dry ingredients. All right, so that looks pretty good. Let's add in the next batch. So about half of what's left is what we're going for here. We'll see if we can do that. So this is probably pretty quickly going to get too thick to whisk. I'm just going to do what I can, and then we'll switch back to the mixer. And hopefully it's not too messy. I think a bigger bowl would have been nice here. But you can see, this should get me my 82 cookies plus more. So I think one of your key takeaways here should be, this is definitely possible to do by hand. So if you don't have a stand mixer, don't let that stop you. But if you have a stand mixer, definitely go ahead and use it. Or else, if you have a giant bowl, use that. Either of those things will make your life quite a bit easier, I think. All right, let's go ahead and use our mixer on this. I will say this does smell really good. It's got like that rich, sweet molasses smell. It's got a little hint of spice from the cinnamon and ginger too. So these are gonna be delicious cookies. All right, let's go ahead and add the rest of our dry ingredients. This is where it's gonna get a little tricky to mix and really gonna take some serious elbow grease. I'm gonna start by just trying to get the flour a little bit wet with the spoon so that it, I mean, you can see we're dangerously close to the top of our bowl here, and it won't take much to have my kitchen become a flour-covered explosion. So let's just moisten this as much as we can. Okay, so you can see, I think that's probably good enough that we should be able to use our mixer on this. Hopefully our mixer can handle it. We will find out. So my poor faithful hand mixer is doing its best. It's doing the job. It's getting it done. It's just, you can hear it struggling a little bit. So hopefully I don't kill it doing this. So I think I'm going to finish this off by hand. Let's just do a last little mix here. This will be my workout for the day, just to make sure there aren't any pockets of dry ingredients that we missed. This is also a lot easier if you only make one batch at a time. I did not want to make 2 separate batches, so I'm just combining it into one big one. But if you make one, you will not have to struggle like this. Honestly, even if it was just a party and just having people over, one batch would be plenty. This makes a lot. You'll see how many it makes. But for this, I just wanted to make sure that we had enough. Plus, I only make these molasses cookies maybe once a year. So this way we can stick some extra in the freezer and have some all winter long. Now, as I'm mixing this here, you can see how sticky and liquidy it is. This would not be easy to shape at all if we did not chill it first. So I'm just going to clean up the edges of my bowl here. I'm going to cover this with plastic wrap. I'm going to leave it in the fridge. You want to leave it in the fridge for at least 2 hours. It's going to be quite a bit longer because I have a lot of things that I'm going to be doing today. So we're going to get this chilling in the fridge for a couple hours. I'll meet you back here tonight and we will bake these and you'll get to see the final delicious product. All right, so I've been gone all day. This dough has been chilling in my fridge for hours. It is now solid and ready to scoop into cookies. So the final step with preparing these molasses cookies is to scoop them into balls, probably about a tablespoon. I'm probably gonna do a generous tablespoon because of what I'm using them for. Then we're going to roll them in sugar and put them on our cookie sheet. I have the oven preheating right now to 350 degrees. So while it finishes preheating, we're going to start scooping out our cookies. So I'm making these cookies pretty generously sized since they are part of a gift. So I'm making them pretty big. You can make them smaller than this. And then we're just going to kind of roll it around in the sugar to get it coated. Just leave it in a ball and we're going to set it on the cookie sheet. You want to leave a few inches between these because they're going to expand while they cook. So coating them in sugar really gives them just a really nice crunch and just makes them a little bit extra delicious. All right, the oven just preheated, so now it's time to pop these in the oven. The recipe says to cook these for 14 to 16 minutes. You know, I always like to go a couple minutes less than the shortest recommended time. So we're gonna check on these after 12 minutes, but because I did make them a little bit on the big side, I wouldn't be surprised if they actually take a little bit longer. So I'm gonna meet you back here when they're done and we'll take a look. So I just took the first batch of cookies out of the oven and they look perfect. So you can see they're starting to crack just a little bit on top. They're still gonna be pretty soft when you first take them out, but they'll kind of firm up a little bit as they cool off and sit. So I let these go for about 15 minutes because they're a little bit on the bigger side. If you made them a little bit smaller, obviously they would take less time to cook. I also like my cookies kind of chewy. I don't like them to be too crunchy, so I tend to pull them out earlier. If you like them to be crunchy and a little bit harder, then you can leave them in a little bit longer too. So I'm just going to get working baking the rest of these cookies. I'll meet you back here when they're all done. All right, so we finally have all our cookies baked. I packed up the 82 cookies for the church stockings, and these are the rest of the cookies, so these are for us. So doubling this recipe made, I want to say between 110 and 120 cookies. It made a lot of cookies. So we've got plenty for us too. I think I'm probably going to end up freezing most of these. All right, so these molasses cookies look delicious and they smell delicious. I'm just gonna make sure that they actually taste delicious. So let's give it a try. So you can see how nice and chewy that is, not crunchy at all. That's good. So definitely, if you like chewy cookies, if you like molasses cookies, go ahead and make these because they're really good. So I hope you guys enjoyed hanging out and making cookies with me today. I know I really enjoyed making these cookies and we will definitely enjoy eating these and sharing some of them with others as well. So go ahead and leave in the comments your favorite Christmas or holiday cookie that you like to make. Or if you don't make a specific cookie for Christmas or holidays or anything like that, just go ahead and leave your favorite cookie recipe in the comments below. I would love to get some new ideas. I'd love to hear what you guys like to make. All right, definitely check back because I am going to be posting quite a few of my favorite Christmas cookie recipes. So I look forward to hanging out with you guys again. All right, guys, I'll see you next time. Bye.